Hi, peace lovers, and welcome back. I'm Avis Kalfsbeck, and this is the Pieces Here podcast. We are currently in a fiction series here on the podcast titled Experiment Zero of the Peace Experiments. This is a 13-episode series following the reports of Kitty O'Compost, a small-town journalist with a sharp wit and a truth-telling goat named Marzipan. In this story, Kitty untangles the mystery of a global peace protocol through the lens of a local pothole, proving that the big questions of the world are usually hidden in the small things we walk over every day. It's a journey about the commons, the power of young people, and the quiet maintenance of peace. If you found us in the middle of this series, feel free to pop back to episode 184 to start the story from the beginning. In today's chapter, Kitty attends a meeting designed to discourage attendance and learns that certain words make bureaucracies deeply uncomfortable. Here is Chapter 2, The Council Meeting of Unwanted Attendance. By 9:42 the next morning, the sky had that washed-out municipal hue that foretold paperwork. I paused at the Midway Beacon doorway for my census of the self. Kitty O'Compost equipped as follows: boots, damp and carrying the scent of righteous mud, a brown skirt over leggings with pockets deep enough for hope and 3 spare pens, one canvas tote carrying a notebook, an apple, and half a spool of twine for reasons even I didn't understand, a borrowed thermos of volcanic tea, and Marzipan, who had already gnawed the corner of the meeting agenda I printed, a form of preemptive didaction. Inventory complete, we set off for the old gym. The gym sat behind the elementary school, a squat concrete structure built in the era when civic buildings were constructed with 2 goals: to withstand nuclear blasts and to depress the spirit. Its windows were narrow slits and the doors were dented from the accumulated frustration of generations. I pushed open the heavy door and stepped into an air that smelled faintly of floor wax and existential resignation. A dozen metal folding chairs had been arranged in rows that suggested attendance rather than welcomed it. The fluorescent lights flickered in a rhythm that could only be described as bureaucratic Morse code. At the front stood 3 figures: Mayor Flanagan, looking like he wished he were anywhere else, preferably in a century where reporters didn't exist, a data engineer, rail-thin and sweating through his polo shirt before the presentation even began, and 3 elders, none of whom appeared to remember why they'd been summoned, but all of whom radiated the sturdy calm of people who had composted far more difficult things than government agendas. I chose a seat midway back. Marzipan, her tri-colored coat dusty from the walk, braced herself beneath the chair with her hooves planted, ready for the inevitable eruption of boredom or jargon. That's when I noticed her. A lone student, maybe 13, sat 2 chairs over with her notebook open and her posture composed with courtroom precision. She wore round glasses and a look of intense skepticism normally reserved for tax audits. There was an air of San Francisco polish about her, a quiet confidence that suggested she was well acquainted with people who used very large words to say very little. She glanced at me, then at my tote, then back to her notebook. A single word topped her page: Commons. I didn't know her name yet, but I recognized that look, a mind refusing to be patronized. The mayor cleared his throat into the microphone, producing the kind of sound one makes when accidentally inhaling a tortilla chip. "Good morning," he began. "Thank you for attending this informational session regarding the, logistics expansion near County Road 12. Marzipan scratched the floor once. Translation: nonsense detected. The data engineer stepped forward, clutching a remote as though it could protect him from the truth. His laptop projected a slide onto a yellowed, pulled-down screen. The font alone was hostile. He launched into jargon at once. The facility is part of a distributed resilience network, he said, primarily for data redundancies, but also for civilian infrastructural adjacencies. A hand shot up from the elders. Mother Sarah, whom I recognized from the seed exchange, spoke softly but firmly. What is a resilience network, dear? The engineer blinked as if she'd asked him to define the ocean. Well, in the event of regional contingency escalation, the node would serve as a coordination substrate. He exhaled. That is the underlying layer for distributed situational computation. The elder squinted at him thoughtfully, then at the screen, then back at him. She said nothing. Her silence was more revealing than any question. From 2 seats away, the student wrote, "Not a real answer," in block letters. The engineer clicked to the next slide, an incomprehensible diagram that resembled a family tree designed by a malfunctioning Roomba. This, he said, is the Contained Adaptive Defense Interface. The acronym CADDY hung in the air like a sneeze no one thanked. He continued, his voice thinning. It integrates predictive threat modeling with our multi-vector. A glitch. His laptop froze for a terrifying second. When it recovered, a new phrase had appeared on the slide, likely from a hidden notes field. Kill cloud. A ripple went through the room. The elder with the walking stick frowned so hard the fluorescent lights dimmed in sympathy. Mother Sarah inhaled sharply. The mayor avoided eye contact with everyone, including his own conscience. The student leaned forward, scribbling furiously. In her haste to capture the engineer's slip-up, she shifted her weight in a small plastic card skidded off her lap, sliding across the polished floor toward my row. She didn't notice. Marzipan, however, noticed everything. With the practiced stealth of a creature who spends her life looking for drop snacks, my goat stretched her neck, delicately pinched the card between her teeth, and retracted. She didn't eat it, a minor miracle, but instead nudged my knee with her head, offering the prize. I took the card from her. It was a school ID, slightly chewed at one corner, featuring a photo of a girl 2 seats over, looking even more skeptical than she did in person. Garrett Serrano, grade 9. I leaned over and held it out. I believe your identity is trying to make a break for it, I whispered. She looked at the card, then at Marzipan, and finally at me. For a split second, the polished mask slipped, replaced by the startled realization of a teenager caught off guard. She took the ID with a quick thanks, her eyes lingering on my reporter's notebook for a beat longer than necessary before she turned back to the front, her jaw set. I raised my hand. Can you explain Kill Cloud in terms appropriate for the general public? I asked. I used the tone of someone inviting a person to reveal whether they understood the words coming out of their own mouth. The engineer swallowed. Yes, of course. Kill Cloud is, well, network defensive aerial integration system. Plain English? A coordinated drone warfare layer, the engineer said on volume 1 1/4. Mother Sarah made the sign people make when a fruit tree blossoms out of season. Marzipan scratched violently, carving a perfect accusatory circle around my chair. And commons? I asked, nodding toward the word on Garrett's notebook. Why did that come up in last night's prep notes? The engineer stiffened. That term was not meant to be included. He clicked desperately through slides that were not helping. It refers to, well, alternative governance models, highly impractical. Anti-commons would be a more precise term for our current operational framework. Garrett raised her hand without waiting to be acknowledged. Is commons The part where people make decisions together instead of waiting for a sequence gate to clear? She asked. The engineer blanched. How do you know that term? She blinked innocently. I read things. The mayor stepped in quickly. Let's stay on the approved agenda. But the damage was done. A truth had slipped out, something the anti-commons did not want us speaking aloud. Commons was the forbidden idea. Killclad was the sanitized term for automated violence. This meeting was merely structured misdirection. The engineer returned to his slides, but no one was listening. Even the fluorescent lights seemed disappointed. He wrapped up 15 minutes later with a promise of transparency that sounded like a threat. As people filtered out, Garrett carefully closed her notebook, offered me the faintest nod, and slipped out the side door. It was a quiet exit with loud intention. I gathered my tote. Marzipan, sensing the meeting's conclusion, head-butted the folding chair in protest. It folded on impact, a dignified end. Outside, sunlight hit us with the force of unwanted clarity. I jotted a single line in my notebook. The meeting revealed nothing it meant to reveal. Then beneath it, the commons is the word they fear. As I walked back to town, Marzipan trotting beside me, I felt the weirdest sensation, like I'd stepped into a pothole too deep to climb out of, but too important to stop exploring. This wasn't about logistics. It wasn't even about drones. It was about what happens when ordinary people discover the truth beneath the jargon. Tomorrow I'd start pulling at the next thread, and something told me Garrett Serrano already was. You've been listening to Experiment Zero of the Peace Experiments. I hope you'll join us for the next episode. My books and peace projects can be found at aviskolfsbeck.com, including the Peter the Water Dog Saves the Planet Best Friend Eco-Fiction series. For those who want to dive deeper into the peace themes we covered in 2025, I've created a 2025 recap ebook. It includes everything from Kitty Ocampo's satire debut to the deep history of the Great Disarmament. It's complimentary and available now at aviskolfsbeck.com/2025. Thank you again. Listen for the peace.